Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Empowered, where you will discover the three most powerful forces on earth as they relate to the human experience. We're going to show you how to master these three forces so you stop merely surviving and begin truly thriving.
I'm Sheri Buffington, a psychologist, coach, trainer, and author with over 40 years of experience uncovering the essential keys to human well-being and lasting success, and helping individuals, leaders, and teams reach their full potential faster and with greater ease.
I'm Mark Schwarz, and I have been on a forever quest to learn faster, better, and easier ways to gain knowledge and experiences to not only survive, but ultimately thrive in this life.
We are dedicated to helping you put these three powerful forces to work in your life so you can leap past any barriers that have kept you stuck and live a life of true abundance.
Whether you desire an abundance of money, time, health, or great relationships, we will teach you how to leverage these powerful forces to get anything you desire.
If you think you've tried everything and still are not living the life you want, there's a reason why, and when you know the reason, you can change the outcome. Join us now and discover how you can easily and powerfully create the life and outcomes you want, starting right now.
Welcome, everyone, to Get Empowered. Today, we want to share our stories with you and help you understand the journey we have each been on and how that led us to the three most powerful forces on earth that can change lives and that we will be sharing with you in future podcasts. Now, right now, let me introduce my partner, Dr. Sheri Buffington, and let her get started and share a bit about how she got to where she is currently.
Thank you, Mark. If we start my story back when it began, it was in actually 1976, the year of the American Bicentennial. At the time, I was in accounting, hated it, didn't know why I hated it. But I was definitely one of those people living lives of quiet desperation. And so I walked into a drugstore to get vitamins. And as I went back toward the vitamin section, I passed a magazine rack. And on the magazine rack, right on the top shelf, was a magazine with a picture of the American flag flying against a night sky and fireworks in the night sky. And that picture just said freedom and opportunity to me. And I pick it up feeling really heady about this freedom and opportunity that Americans get to have. And as I'm feeling that, I flip the magazine open thinking I'm going to see something cool about America, right? And as fate would have it, I flipped to a page where right on the right-hand side in the middle in a box where you couldn't miss it was a quote by Henry David Thoreau. And the quote was, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." And it hit me. It was that extreme dichotomy between that heady freedom and opportunity and realizing that's not what my experience was. And it hit me so hard. I thought, if this is true, and it seems to be because it's true for almost everybody I know, if this is true, and there's got to be a cause, because everything is cause and effect. Right? There's got to be a cause for this. And if I can understand the cause, I can maybe find a solution for a better effect. Right? And that set me on the path that I've been on ever since. I stayed in accounting for about 2 more years. I endured it because it was enduring it. But searching, in that process of searching, I knew accounting. That was a head choice that I got into when I was a kid because I helped my dad with his books in his business. So I knew it was one of those things where I had the skills. It's what I call today, or we call today, the proficiency trap. I was proficient at it. I just didn't have any energy or joy around it. And so I began searching for what else. And I can tell you that path was very circuitous. I tried lots of things. I tried photography. I tried selling. I tried all kinds of things. And nothing worked until I went back to school, and actually went back to school to learn how to sell. That's what I thought. Because the way I grew up, I had no social skills. And so I thought, well, I've got to get some social skills, right? and courage in order to be able to sell something. I was a horrible salesperson. But I went back and I studied. I took a class in marketing, and the day two, the marketing professor informed us that sales, marketing, and customer relations are three different functions. And I'm going, oh dear, I'm not going to learn how to sell in this marketing class. But part of the marketing class was psychographics. It's a study of why people buy or don't buy. And it's so precise that you can look at a zip code and pretty much predict what cars people drive, what cereals they eat, what TV shows they watch. It was fascinating that that was so predictable. And it was that psychographics part of marketing that got me into psychology, and that's where I stayed, and that was my home. So I ended up getting a PhD in psychology. They say most people go into psychology to discover about themselves. That was certainly true for me.
Right.
But in the process, I learned so much more about so many other people, and realized, and my goal was always looking for that initial focus. What is it that causes the mass of men to lead lives of quiet desperation? What is that? And in the process, I can't tell you, I became a self-help junkie, and I was running down path after path after path looking for, and I was following all the self-help gurus, right? And I would head down their path and be doing exactly what they said do. And yet at the end of that, I would find myself at a dead end or a detour that didn't work for me. And I discovered over time that although their paths are working for them, it's their path, not mine. And then I had to start the process of discovering my path. And I ran across the Greek philosophers, Plato and Aristotle. And Plato stated, above all else, know thyself, above all else. And I'm thinking, why is that? And then you go to Aristotle, and he's telling the same story. He's emphasizing self-knowledge above everything else. So I started looking on that path and discovered that is actually the key to finding everything else that you need to know about you. Because one, if you don't know yourself, you don't know what you want out of life. And if you don't know what you want out of life, you can't lay out a map to get you there. And if you don't have a map, you're just like a ship without a rudder, right? You're just being pushed about by essentially other people. So if you don't have a dream, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a purpose, your own purpose, then you're living somebody else's dream. You don't have any choice. You're living, and isn't that kind of the definition of desperation? You're living somebody else's dream. You're helping them fulfill their life, and you're not fulfilling your own. So, it was all those dead ends and the things that learning and realizing that everything starts with self-knowledge. I ultimately did a research project looking at what it is that successful people do, because I had read lots and lots and lots of books on success.
Right.
And I'm doing all of those things, and it's not helping any. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with me. I'm doing everything the experts are saying do, and I'm not getting the result. So I'm clearly flawed. What I discovered is what I mentioned earlier is that I was running down their path, not my own. I didn't know what my own was. And in order to discover what my own was, I had to discover me. And so the research project I did, I started interviewing successful people in all kinds of places, not money success. That was one of it. That's just part of it. But people who would have a family that was unhealthy and undisciplined, and this person would be disciplined, and they would get healthy and fit and stay there. They would maintain it, right? Or they would work on relationships and maintain good relationships. These were success on a broad scale. And as I started questioning these people, they could tell me what they were doing oftentimes, but not what led to what they were doing. And it was what led to what they were doing that was the key, as it turned out. because it's those things that lead us to what we're doing are all internal, and self-knowledge is the first piece of that. So without self-knowledge, you can't get to self-esteem, can you?
Mm-mm.
And without self-esteem, you can't get to self-confidence. And without self-confidence, you can't build healthy relationship and personal boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, people are going to be pushing you all over the place. Yeah, so the things that need to develop behind the scenes for you to be able to gain and sustain success are all internal, as it turns out. And that's how you and I got to this place of looking at different things. What's different than the actions that happen out there? And your story is real similar to mine in that you had a lifetime of learning, and we all do. And if we're aware enough to see the lessons and to see the chain of events that lead us where we're going, you know, then we can get to finding the solution, right? Our own personal solution to not living a life of quiet desperation. Tell us about your story.
Let me ask a question real quick. Sheri, can you talk just very briefly and to finish up your story around awareness? That is the first step necessary for anybody to make a shift or transformation. True?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Unless uh, I developed what I call the ACE formula. And ACE is about awareness, choice, and energy flow. And one of the nine things or the three important points we're going to be talking about is energy and energy flow. But we can't make better choices if we aren't aware that the choices we're making aren't working for us.
Right. Gotcha. So that took a lot of years to get to that awareness. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that just came, was you were born with, you felt it right away, you had to nurture it and develop it as you became a mature adult. It's not something that typically just comes to us, right or wrong?
No, in fact, I was probably totally clueless when I was young. I look back at some of the choices I made when I was young. I'm going, what in the world was I thinking?
Thinking. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and we all do. We do assessments on people, and when they're young, when they're in their teens and 20s, I don't even expect to see that developed. We start introspecting and looking at ourselves and looking at life from a wider perspective and being more aware when we start approaching our 30s. Most people do. Most people are near 30 when they get into that awareness space. So all the mistakes we made between birth and 30, we can forgive ourselves for that.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing we can forgive because otherwise that's a heck of a burden. So,
Yes, for sure.
well, in general terms, my story is something similar. I know that the place I go back to with clarity is, and this was with your help through walking me through something called rapid accelerated mind patterning, using my core map profile, etc. A lot of tools that you have available that helped me early on in my development. And the piece that it took me back to, Sheri, was I remember as a kid on the playground, there was only one thing that led my life at that point in stage and age, and that was play. That was having fun. And I remember that I was so determined to have those moments of play and those moments of fun that I would actually even become the leader in most cases. I'd initiate games. I would, I really, it was kind of like I do now. I'll kind of organize something and see it through. And that's what I remember is even on the playground or playing football, but I was always a leader at that early age. And then what I realized is I looked at my development in my family system. What happened was I shut that down. And that was, I love my father. That's not the point, but he was pretty strong and pretty powerful. He had his kind of his ways of doing things. And so I think I was a product, what I call now is the my way or highway syndrome. Do it
Yeah,
my way or you hit the highway, or there's going to be circumstances or consequences from that.
right.
And so that started shutting me down as I got, age 4, 5, 6, 7, and beyond. And that shutdown, that conditioning, which I'd really love for you to talk about when we get, after I get done with my piece here, that conditioning really did repress me and my true, natural, authentic self.
Yeah.
And so I spent the remaining many years until I got out of college when I started going into personal development weekends and seminars and trainings. I mean, I've done, I don't know, I think it lasts 3,500 hours of post weekend training since I was age 21. And it finally started giving me the okay, the verification that I was okay. And especially as I started seeing who the real me was. And instead of that conditioned self. So that was, again, I loved my father. Still love him, even though he's passed. But the point was, he had a way. And in a family unit, he was the only one that was going to be able to have that way because that was his style and he had it owned. I
Right.
didn't. And it just conflicted with him. So that part of me got shut down until I met Dr. Sheri Buffington, and she did what through Core Map had helped me identify that. In the meantime, one of the things that I always thought about my father was that he did not have a level of compassion. He wasn't a guy that was huggy and I love you. None of that. It was a pretty hardcore taskmaster. And then one time I had a bout of pink eye, and I had to go to the doctor and get a shot of penicillin. Well, that penicillin, I didn't know it, but I'm allergic to penicillin. I had an anaphylactic reaction of
Me
which my
too.
my heart. You too?
Yeah.
Serious? Okay,
Yeah.
so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I had an extreme anaphylactic reaction such that my heart actually stopped. And I won't go into this whole near-death experience description, but point was, I left my body. I could see in the room from a top down sort of, and it was the first time I ever saw my father cry, and he was panicked. And finally, the doctor gave me, a shot, epinephrine and whatever else reversed it. But I came out of that okay. But that was the first moment I ever saw the human actual side of my father. And I thought, okay, that's what I'm looking for. More people, more, I don't care if they're close or not, but I want that true, authentic, I care, I got compassion. And that's kind of what I went for the rest of my life, trying to find not only other people, but that inside myself.
Mhm.
Because I had pushed it down, hidden, repressed, and denied it just because it wasn't very popular around my house. So, and I kind of liken that pushing it down. And if everybody who's listening can visualize a beach ball, one of those big 4-foot beach balls we go to the surf with at the ocean, and in essence, pushing my natural, authentic self down is that beach ball. When in fact, the natural state of that beach ball, that authentic self wants to ride on top free and be able to just go and do what it does. Instead, standing there for years, metaphorically holding that beach ball down under the waves. And all it did was get me tired, worn out, stressed, and, certainly no closer to my true and authentic self. So that was why I got involved in personal development, because I wanted to let that beach ball up. I knew it. And to use your words that you've taught me over the years, and that is there was a yearning in me.
Yeah.
And that yearning wouldn't stop until I started getting in touch with who I truly and authentically was. And again, I keep quoting you, and rightly so, because this is all your body of work. And that is, a good share of the population has no idea. A huge share of the population has no idea who they really are.
Right. And that's because a huge share of the population has experienced just what you've experienced and just what I experienced growing up. Almost nobody has a perfect upbringing, even if parents intend well.
Yes.
That, things as simple as do your best. A child who
Mhm.
doesn't have the brain power yet to translate that correctly will sometimes translate that to be the best. And then they go through their life trying to be the best and falling short. And so conditioning, there's in psychology for years and years, there's been this, is it nature or nurture? And the reality is it's both. It's both. We come into the world with a hardwired for our core nature. You are hardwired to be that free spirit and that leader who led people. You found that as a child. So our core nature never changes. We're born with it and we will die with it. However, it can be altered, it can be suppressed, or it can be enhanced. Most people have it suppressed, and we don't know what to do when it's suppressed. It's like that beach ball. That's a really good analogy because you're trying so hard to control this thing
Mhm.
that feels like if you let it go, it's going to be scary. If you let it go, you're going to lose all of that conditioning that's kept you on the right path, right?
Right.
And that things are going to go awry. So it's exhausting. And it's that leads us to that place of desperation because we want to let it go. Our nature is saying, let it go. Our nature is saying, be who you came into the world to be. And our conditioning is saying, don't you dare. Who do you think you are?
Or there's this piece that says, if you let go, you're not going to be worthy. You're not going to be perfect. Oh,
Right.
wait a minute, perfect. Wait a minute, what's the description of perfect? And I just, I've had a lot of clients over the years that said, you know what? I won't do it because I can't be perfect. Well, wait a minute. Where, what's the definition of perfection? And it's just something, we use to keep that beach ball submerged.
Right.
And after a while it didn't work, and that's why, and it is a last piece to my story, and that is why I had, once I got out of college, I had 7 jobs in 12 years. And the reason is because I didn't understand exactly what I was looking for. And so what did I attract to me in the form of a boss? Oh, dad. 7 different jobs, and everybody was in the, my way or the highway. And I just knew that that was not working for me, even though every time I thought, oh my God, this is a good job. This is a great job. No, within, within months, I would spot the same signals, the same actions, and I'd get frustrated and I'd quit and I'd go find something else until I started my own business, which has now been almost 42, 43 years ago. I'm a horrible boss to work for. That's all I can say.
But
Actually, yeah, go ahead.
you know what you just said,
Yeah,
eh, looking at awareness, a wider perspective,
yeah.
the reality of the human brain is, and the subconscious mind, which is one of the things we'll talk about in the future, is that one of its rules is it's always trying to make you right,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so and the way we stay right is we avoid the evidence that disproves what we believe, and we only attend to evidence that proves what we think is true. And so all of those 7 bosses, you're probably to some degree ignoring the things that did not align with your belief systems,
Mm-hmm.
right? And paying attention to the things that did align. And it doesn't matter if that's what we're doing or if that's the reality out there, right? The effect is the same. The effect is we get to this place of, I can't tolerate this person anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so again, the effect, whether it's actually in them or what it's only what we're seeing in them, it's the same. But that's the
Sheri,
power of the way
that's the
we
power of what? Sorry, go ahead.
of the subconscious mind and what it does to make you right.
Well, let me ask you, in your history and growing up, was there ever, since you brought up this lives of quiet desperation, did you ever feel that? Did you ever have hopelessness in the family unit such that it caused you to be depressed, repressed, or want to hide, or was it that
Oh, absolutely.
overwhelming?
Yeah, I was number 5 of 7.
Mm,
My older siblings um, were one controlling me because they were older, and I could also see the things I did that got them in trouble. And I discovered early on that the safest thing for me to be was invisible.
mm,
And so I became invisible. That was safe. Fortunately for me, my mother um, saw me. She was, as far as she was concerned, I was this wonderful child with all kinds of possibilities, and she made sure that I knew that. So, she was kind of my saving grace. But yes, I definitely grew up in a family that I had a father like yours. He was um he was non-demonstrative. He never hugged. He never said I love you. He never, when I got to where I was developing myself and I wanted to be healthier and I wanted to have healthy relationships, I decided I couldn't have a, an overall healthy sense of of self and where I show how I show up in the world if I continue with the relationship with him, because none of the seven kids had any feelings for him, positive feelings.
Mm,
So for years though, I had watched my mother um, walk up and give him a kiss on the cheek and go about her way, right? And she never expected him to hug her back or say, I love you. He showed it in a different way. He never just directly said, I love you, but he showed he loved her in different ways. And so she appreciated that and she showed him love. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try that. I don't know how to reach him except to try what mother's doing.
right.
So we went, but by that time I was married and had kids, and we would go visit my family every summer for about 2 weeks. And I decided next time I go visit him, I'm going to try that. So we go and first time I walk up and I give him a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and he literally reeled backwards. I mean, he physically reeled backwards, and he get this look on his face, and he goes, "What do you want?" I said, I don't want anything. I just wanted a kiss. And off I went. He looked at me suspiciously for quite some time. He's waiting for me, waiting for the shoe to drop, right?
Right.
I did that multiple times while I was there. And it at some point, after the fourth or fifth kiss on the cheek and leaving without asking for anything, he finally stopped reeling backwards. But he still had that suspicious look for a few days. But when I left 2 weeks later, never had he hugged me back, never had he said anything except he kind of went silent. But I noticed that as I left, he positioned himself to be hugged. He didn't
Really?
hug me, but he positioned himself to be hugged.
Yeah.
And that completely changed the relationship with him. But I had to do it. Sometimes it has to be the child, it can't be the parent, right?
Right. Right.
And the when he passed away, the year before he passed away, I sent him a Father's Day card and thanked him for all the work he had done. He supported 9 people all by himself his whole life. And I told him how much I understood and I appreciated him and all the things he did.
Yes.
And when he died, Mother found in his billfold a picture of me and that letter that I sent him, folded and refolded and folded. And he had read it so many times, it was dog-eared. And the beauty of that whole thing was, one, we built the relationship, but at his standing at his casket at the funeral, I knew I was the only one of 7 kids that had built that bridge.
Yeah. That's
But that's part of that awareness stuff. As we get more and more aware,
yeah.
we can make better choices. And sometimes those choices come way down the road, right? They don't come in time, they come way down the road. For you, for example, you understand your father in a way you never did, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
but when we understand them after they're gone, we feel like there's nothing we can do, but there is. What we can do is for ourselves.
It's for ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember, like you, the first time I remember standing at our cottage by the lake, and it was a particularly emotional conversation. And I looked at him and I said, "All I know is I love you." And you'd have thought that he'd saw an atomic bomb go off behind me, and he wasn't sure. He was stunned, like your dad. He says he didn't get in, and he said he didn't really he didn't respond. And then as I did it over time, I remember calling him from school, from college one time, and I said, "I love you," and he said, "I love you," and he did it so subtly, so under his breath, and he just but as we got down the line, it became more natural, and that was the when he did pass, I had no regrets because it was the only thing I thought. All I want to do is get these 3 words out to him, and whether he ever says it to me or not is secondary.
Right.
So that was the beauty part of it. But at the same time, I also knew that he was spotting in me that I was becoming different, and it wasn't the same boy that he had conditioned in his image, if you will. And so, that was also very inspiring because I didn't have to live up to anybody anymore.
Right.
And
It
then when he
set you
passed,
free and it ultimately set him free.
absolutely,
Yeah.
set him free. And again, this man was somebody who was active in politics. He was in the early union negotiations in the auto industry and the Bell Telephone Company, and he was a postmaster for 30 years. He was the last postmaster who was assigned by John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and he um, actually knew Kennedy, and I actually shook Kennedy's hand at an event for in the city where I grew up. Long story short, my father was no slouch, and I appreciated that piece of him even to this day for what he was able to accomplish. So, what we were talking about was the choices that we make in our early life don't necessarily seem like such a good thing later in life. And
Right,
somebody that comes to mind about that is Prince Harry. He's estranged from his father.
right.
And I'm seeing interviews where he says, "I'd like to get back in the family, but my dad won't talk to me." And so what's your thoughts about that? Talk more about what we think about as early stage thinking is good at the time, but it's
Right.
not so good as we get older.
Right. Well, for him, his thinking initially was that what he needed was freedom and autonomy. And
Right.
if you look at the royal family, there's all kinds of rules and all kinds of structure, and he needed freedom from that. And that was a good choice for him in the moment
Mm-hmm.
because that's where he was. That's what he needed in the moment. But when you get enough of what you need, and you can look at on a broader scale, be more aware
Mm-hmm.
he's now become aware that what he's missing is connection to his
Right.
family.
Right.
And yet he's in his mind, he has set up a situation where he can't make that connection again, but he can. You did it with your father. I did it with my father. He can do it with his father. Can you imagine what your my father eventually said, I love you to me too. But
Mm-hmm.
think what we had to create for them to be able to say that. We had to create a sense of safety. It's safe for you to say, I love you, right?
Exactly.
It's safe for you to get out of your head and into your heart. And that's what Prince Harry has got to do now. He's got to take that path. He's got to walk that road and get his father to a place of safe to
Mm-hmm.
feel like he can now get out of his head and into his heart and say, I love you again. Because his dad probably does still love him. Obviously, he's his son, right?
Right.
He just doesn't know. There's this sense of betrayal, maybe, on the father's part, right?
Especially after the book got, let out
Right,
and
right,
he told all the secrets behind the
right,
behind the
right.
door. So,
And so it's one of those things that's really hard when you damage a relationship
mm-hmm.
that way to go back and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I want to make amends. A principle in
Mm-hmm.
psychology that is called reciprocation, tit for tat. You be mean to me, I'm going to be mean to you. You act rude to me, I'm going to ignore you, right? So that reciprocation, he's going to have to build a reciprocal part on his side. Prince Harry will.
Mm-hmm.
And that very law of reciprocation says if you keep giving to me and you keep giving to me and you keep giving to me and you keep doing it lovingly and openly and honestly, at some point I have got to reciprocate or I feel guilty,
Right.
right? So he has a path back. He doesn't know it yet, but he does.
That's a good point. And Prince Harry is obviously out there. He lives in America, and Americans understand and know what's going on with the royal family. That's one piece of this. And like you and I both have a long history with working with businesses. And we go into organizations and we see these leaders who are as damaged as you know kids who have never had their authentic self revealed or that came out of a dysfunctional family. I mean, there's a lot of leaders that aren't really great leaders. I'm going to be honest. And
Yeah.
that is, they're thinking, and we talk about left brain versus right brain, but I think one of the biggest things that I see that's lacking in leadership is the ability to have some level of compassion for those that report to us.
Right.
And why do most people leave a job? Well, 78% of the population that leaves a job in exit interviews says it's because of the boss.
Right. It's almost never the job. It's the leader or it's the environment. And the
Right.
leader creates the environment. So
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. So what you're talking about there is leaders have been taught for years since the Industrial Revolution. They've been taught command and control.
Right.
And they haven't gotten away from it yet. They're still trying to lead people like the Industrial Revolution. And you can push people to pop rivets faster, right? Or to assemble parts faster. You can push people to do that.
Right.
It's manual labor. You can't push people to think better because the more you push them, the worse they think. You get stress levels go up and the cognitive functions go down, and you're doing exactly the opposite of what you intend to be doing, right?
Right.
And but leaders don't know that yet, and so they go into the workplace and think about the standard in the workplace. The standard is leave your emotions at home.
Yep.
Well, if you show up, if you're thinking going in, and again, we tend to follow the path we think is the right one to follow. And if you think the right one to follow is leave your emotions at home and they're doing that, there's a difference between feelings though and emotions.
Mhm.
Emotions can get messy, feelings never do.
Elaborate on that. That's a great distinction.
Well, emotions, if we're feeling emotional, we might go to um, pushing off what we're feeling on other people. You're making me mad.
Hmm.
You're upsetting me. You're not doing what I'm asking you to do. And then we get into this emotional space and it gets messy. It's lacking of emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent people manage their emotions so that they can feel. And feeling is about considering you, considering more than just logic and looking at the whole human being, right? And if
Hmm.
I'm going to be a great leader, in fact, the study I did years ago, I did a white paper on high level leaders. And one component that showed up in that study was the best leaders had a very high score on feeling.
Mm.
So they led with thinking, but right behind it was feeling. They're what we call commander entertainers. And it was that feeling component that allowed them to see their people, that allowed them to create what we call that healthy environment of structured freedom, where
Right.
they give them the structure they need and the freedom to just work their best within that structure. And look out the window when things are going right and say, my people did that, and genuinely believe it, right?
Yes.
But that's all a feeling component. And when leaders don't have that, when leaders walk in the door thinking the and believing the old um, industrial revolution kind of leadership, that it's you got to stay in your head.
Yes.
You've got to be logical. You just tell people what they need to do, you tell them how to do it, and expect them to do it. And if they don't, then it's their fault, right? That's the problem with leadership. And that's why right now, for years, you and I've talked about this before, the Gallup polls that show a
Yes.
70 to 75% disengagement level. It's why there's no heart in it. When you go into businesses that are the best businesses to work for, they're always leaders with a big heart.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I remember in a training that you were leading, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 years ago, and we were sitting in there, and it was a guy who was from the military, and he had on his core map, by the way, one of your tools is called core map. On the core map, he had come out as a dominant relator and a much more of an introverted style, but he was in the armed forces, and one of the things that he said, and he never understood it, he thought he had to make up and be that stronger, divisive, driven, hard General Patton type who was, in our terminology, more of a commander.
Mhm.
But the thing was that he noted is after he did this, that his style was so connective to the men in his under his leadership. He said, quote, they would run through walls for me.
Right.
Whereas I'll bet, and I think I've met and interviewed people who, they're that hardcore, non compassionate, non feeling type, and all they do is bark orders. And I'll bet you they wouldn't get most of the people saying, I'll do whatever it takes. They're operating out of fear,
Right.
not out of love, not out of authenticity. It's not that. And they're
Right.
doing it based on the old militaristic system that is quickly dying
Yeah.
and will die a faster death given the current circumstances.
The research you and I did on the new generations,
Yes.
power shift, truly
Hmm.
is the shift is really power is really shifting to the generations. And because they're not playing the military game anymore. They're not
Right.
playing the sports. You keep playing it whether you're losing or winning. They're not playing that game anymore.
Right.
But what you find is leaders with heart. And I've heard many employees say, when you have a leader with heart, I would follow him or her over a cliff
Yes.
because I know that this person cares about me and they would never lead me over a cliff unless there was a soft landing.
Right.
And on the other hand, that hard-nosed, get it done and follow the rules and just do your work and shut up.
Yes.
Those people are doing what they have to not to get fired.
That's right.
And what that amounts to is about 30% of their capacity. So you got people working at 30%, or you've got people working at 110%, and the ones working at 110% are working for heart-based leaders.
Which is, and what I've said to several hardcore leaders over the years is, have you ever found yourself wanting to go take the hill? You have all of the capacity, all the capability. You get on your horse, and everybody else is right there behind you on their horse. You ride up the hill. You bark orders. You run over what you have to run over. You get to the top of the hill, and you look back, and there isn't a damn person there with you on your team because you've scared them all, you've frightened them all, you've disavowed them, whatever it is, and you're at the top of the hill. You're on your own. And why is that? Because they don't feel connected to you and they're not anymore going to run through walls for you.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of that. We've
Yeah.
seen a lot of that. And that seems to be almost predominant now in this sort of shifting, changing landscape.
Yeah. What I find fascinating is that leaders don't understand what's happening. They'll try multiple things. They'll try something else. They'll try something else. And they're reading all of these leadership books, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and then they go back and they again the brain collects what aligns with its beliefs and ignores everything else. So even if those leadership books are full of lead with heart, that's not what they're retaining.
Right.
They're retaining what aligns with their belief is what a leader should look like. And so there's a lot of, you talk about quiet desperation.
Yes.
There's a lot of that in leadership because they're trying everything and they genuinely want to have a good result. They genuinely want to have people who are high performers and who kind of self-direct themselves. But as long as there's fear, nobody's going to self-direct. Nobody is going to make decisions and look ahead and be that proactive individual that they're searching for if there's fear.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I think as you and I have also walked into organizations both separately and together, and we start interviewing the senior team, and one of the things that they are notorious for, and why I got so, I guess, beside myself over the many years, and that is, you go fix them. Me, I'm not the problem, nor is my senior team the problem, but it's everybody else from that level down. Go fix them and then come back and tell us what you've done, and they're going to be righteous and on path. And the answer is absolutely not only no, but hell no,
Right.
because it typically starts at the top and you're
Always,
one of the contributors,
always starts at the top.
right?
Always starts at the top.
Yeah. So,
And that's why you and I have focused on leaders for years
Mhm.
because we understand that it starts at the top. We understand whether it's the mother or the parents with the
Right.
children or it's the leader in an organization, it starts at the top. And what that leader creates is what filters down. And it filters down through the entire organization. And sadly, the higher up the organization a dysfunctional person goes, the
Mhm.
more dysfunctional the organization becomes.
And interestingly enough, that stress will out more and more of the depth of their dysfunction
Right,
anyway. There's a
right,
lot of those examples,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So, as a last piece here, talk about in the leadership piece the left versus right brain. What do we see is happening with leaders who use or operate out of left brain versus right brain versus maybe even a combination being able to switch back and forth? What's your thoughts about that?
Well, the people who function out of left brain, again, that's that command and control and just give them instructions and give them orders and they should do their job.
Hmm.
That's all logic. They ask themselves one question. When we make a decision, we need to be asking two questions. And most people, if you're going to follow a decision through to its a good conclusion, you do ask both questions. People who live in their head, that left brain headspace, they ask one question: does it make sense? Will this get me the outcome I want? That's the one question they ask. To complete that query, you need to ask the second question too. The second question is, how will it impact me or somebody else?
Mm,
And if you fail to ask that, you fail to get into your heart and consider other people, consider the long-term effect, not only on you, but on everybody. And so it's that's what people who lead with logic, they ask that question and they need to not forget to ask the second question. People who lead with feeling do the reverse of that, that they'll ask, how will this impact me or somebody else? And if the answer is that, well, the impact will be good, and they forget to ask, does it make sense? They might do some crazy things.
hmm.
They might do some illogical things because they're not asking the second question. Everybody needs to ask both questions. And in order to do that, you're doing head and heart. Head says, does it make sense? And heart says, how will it impact me or somebody else? That's
That's
a
really
complete
interesting.
decision tree.
So the question is, how will it impact me or how will it impact others?
Right. Yeah, yes. How will it impact me or somebody else is the
Somebody else.
second question. And
Mhm.
does it make sense to
Does
do
it
this?
make sense?
What's the effect?
Great. So anybody listening in literally can leave this podcast today and hear two things that you really truly, if you're leading people, you need to ask these things. And it's
Absolutely.
crucial to help evolve your process, your thinking patterns, your connection to your people, etc.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really delightful. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we sign off today?
I would like to reiterate that in future podcasts, we are going to be talking about the three most important things on the planet for human beings. And those three things are energy flow, managing energy, mindset, which is understanding how the subconscious mind works, and the conscious mind, so that you can align those two so that what you want is what you get. And presence. And presence is about how we show up in the world. And there's an axiom, you've heard it before, we've talked about it before. You got 30 seconds to make an impression,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And if your presence is such that people, you're exuding, I care about you. You're exuding, I'm trustworthy, right? You're exuding, I'm a human of principle and integrity. Immediately you've got a connection, and now you can build from that. So presence is much, much bigger than we even imagine it is. Those are three very powerful things.
Is presence and influence the same or different?
They're different. Influence is what we do with the all those three factors. Influence is if we understand, if I understand you and I understand what you need, and I can give you what you need so that you'll help me get what I need. That's influence. So if I can influence you to give me what I need so that I can get you what you need, then there's that reciprocal element there, and we are now in alignment. So influence is about being in alignment, getting people to do what you want them to do and be happy doing it because it's beneficial to both. And it's something we have to, unless we're asking both of those questions,
Mm-hmm.
we can't get to beneficial to both.
Right.
We can't say, well, how will this impact me and you?
Well, and I think it's a sign of the times, and we won't get into any political discussions at all. That's not part of where we're at, especially on this episode. But the point is, the world is shifting and changing, and there is a fair amount of believing that it's not a win-win, but it's I'm going to win, you're going to lose, and that is a not so positive approach or model to operate from. Not if you're going to keep people engaged.
Well,
For
and a
sure.
part of that, a part of why that's happening today is because stress levels are so high for
Mm,
everybody. We don't know. We don't have leaders who tell us where the nation is headed. We don't have leaders who tell us where the world is headed. There's
right.
a lot of, we were born with one fear, and that's fear of the unknown.
Mm,
And right now, there are a lot of unknowns. Nobody can give us answers. And so, because of that, people are stressed. And under stress, you and I both know what the brain does under stress,
oh
right?
yeah.
The amygdala starts burning hot and burning up a lot of energy, and the brain adjusts for that energy burn by shutting down the prefrontal cortex, which is all of the executive functions, clear thinking, strategizing, planning, right? Making good decisions. And if we're not doing those things, if we're not thinking clearly, and if we're not making good decisions, a lot of chaos occurs. And as chaos occurs, what happens? Stress levels go up. And now we're seeing a world that's full of stress. And right now, instead of things getting better, instead of the mass of men not leading lives of desperation, the desperation is getting bigger, and it's stress related and
And if we're under stress, we either go into fight, flight, or
or freeze.
freeze.
That's right.
And that's what we're seeing a lot of chaos in this fight.
Right.
And, and then there's those people that, and I'm watching it, and myself included. There's a point where I can only take so much. So fight, flight, I get away from it, I get out off the line. And, to save myself, or freeze. It's just like, okay, what do I
Ignore
do?
it. Pretend it isn't
Ignore it.
happening. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So
Right.
we're in that space right now, and I think it's as prevalent as any time in my years on the planet.
Right. And which is why you and I are doing this podcast. It's so important to
Yeah.
help people get past that stress, to understand the power that they have and the things that they can do to manage. We are healthy, psychologically healthy, to the degree that we know what we can control. And if we think we control the outer world, we're mistaken. We can't control the outer world. We can't control other people. We can certainly control ourselves. And COVID brought that to the forefront. We all, until COVID, we thought we had more control of the outer world than we do, right? It
Right.
made it real clear that we don't. There's this little virus that can shut down a nation. It can shut down the world, this little virus.
Hmm.
And so that's another thing that's added to today's stress level is we believed we had a sense of control that we don't believe we have today. So now do we not only do we have no answers, right? Now, not only is the future unknown, so there's that natural fear response, but we also now believe we don't have less power than we used to think we had.
Mm.
So we've got to re-empower people. That's what empowered is about. We've got to empower people to realize that they still have lots of control and there are lots of things they can do to make their lives full and rich and happy.
Well, as a closed piece to this, I mean, when people get to that fight, flight, or freeze, it reminds me of a Jack Reacher movie where Tom Cruise is on the phone and he's calling somebody that's got a hostage held, and he said, "The one thing you don't want to do is challenge a man who's got nothing to lose, because they'll do, extraordinary, unnatural things, and, fight, flight, or freeze. There's no telling what people will do when they get under that kind of stress or strain,
That's right.
especially if they've lost hope, which is, what you and I hope to bring back and through discussions and get people to tap back into. We're not losing hope. We're talking about that awareness. We're talking about understanding our true and authentic self. We're bringing forth who and what you are truly, at a base soul level, and that's a great place to operate from.
Right. And those truly powerful factors that will put you back into control, that will literally empower you to live the life that you choose to live. That's what we're about, and that's what our discussions are going to be going forward. We hope all of you will join us for those going forward.
Well, I love the conversation as you and I get together and we have some incredible decades of conversation. But for those who are listening, be sure to join us for our next episode of Get Empowered and learn about the 3 most powerful, scientifically proven forces on earth directly affecting yours and our lives, and why they work for some people and why they don't work for others. There is a distinct difference about why it works and why it doesn't, and what are those people doing that are making it work and that are not. So we will be back on and in very near future. And Sheri, thank you so much for your time, energy, and wonderful insights.
And thank you for your brilliance and all the wonderful brainstorming that we get to do together. I really love it.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Get Empowered.
Our commitment is to give you the tips, tools, techniques, and insights that will help you create the abundance and success you desire, both personally and professionally.
Now is the time to let go of the past, start living powerfully in the present, and creating the future you dream of having.
If you think you've tried everything and still are not living the life you want, continue to listen to our podcast and visit our website at getempowered.solutions.